in accordance with Section 1521 of the 1997 Constitution and Order 86-1 of the Standing Orders for the fiscal year 1st January to 31st December 2024, both days inclusive, on Friday, 17th November 2023. Accordingly, and pursuant to Section 1521A of the Constitution and Order 86-2 of the Standing Orders, the National Assembly considered and approved the said 2024 estimates with amendments on Wednesday, 29th of November 2023. Accordingly, in pursuance of Section 1523 of the Constitution and Order 87-2 of the Standing Orders, the Honorable Minister for Finance and Economic Affairs shall today introduce the Appropriation Bill 2024 for consideration and enactment by this August Assembly. In doing so, as per Order 87-4 of the Standing Orders, the Honorable Minister will set out any amendments made to the estimates present and outline government's fiscal policies and programs for the year 2024, commonly referred to as the budget speech. Honorable members, we are all gathered here today with a sense of duty and responsibility to discuss a matter of paramount importance, and that's the Appropriation Bill. This document represents not just a financial roadmap for the coming fiscal year, but a reflection of our nation's priorities and aspirations. As we embark on this crucial stage of the budgetary process, it is imperative that we recognize the gravity of the decisions ahead. The Appropriation Bill, with its allocations and provisions, lays the foundation for the effective functioning of our government and the realization of our collective union for the welfare of our citizens. Therefore, honorable members, the Honorable Minister for Finance and Economic Affairs will proceed to table the Appropriation Bill 2024 before us today. I thank you all. Clerk, can we proceed?
Bill, Section 1523 of the 1997 Constitution and Standing Order 87-2, Appropriation Bill 2024 Budget Speech, by the Honorable Minister for Finance and Economic Affairs.
Honorable members, I now invite the Honorable Minister for Finance and Economic Affairs to table the Appropriation Bill. Honorable Minister.
Honorable Speaker, His Excellency the Vice President of the Republic, Cabinet Ministers here in present, members of the National Assembly, diplomatic and consular corps, media fraternity, ladies and gentlemen, all other protocols duly and respectively observed. I beg to move the bill entitled An Act to Provide for the Services of the Government of the Gambia for the period 1st January 2024 to 31st December 2024, both days inclusive, be read a second time. The economy of the Gambia has displayed remarkable resilience in the face of global economic challenges that threaten to slow down the gradual recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. The headwinds include lingering effects of COVID-19 pandemic, spillover effects of the Russia-Ukraine war, and the growing impact of climate change and adverse weather events. The combination of these multiple and overlapping exogenous shocks led to disruptions in global supply chains, high volatility in global financial markets, high inflationary pressures fueled by rising food and energy prices, tightening global financial conditions, and increasing cost of capital and debt servicing. The impact of these shocks was reflected in the decline in the country's real GDP, which is estimated to have slowed down to 4.97% in 2022 from 5.3% in 2021. Although this growth rate was lower than the country's pre-pandemic level of 6.2% in 2019, it is stronger than the world average of 3.4% and surpassed the regional performance of 3.6% for West Africa, underscoring the country's resilience despite extraordinary challenges in navigating these adverse shocks. Notwithstanding tighter global financial conditions in response to multi-decade highs in global inflation rate is adversely affecting the country's macroeconomic fundamentals, generating foreign exchange pressures, weighing on forex reserves, and exerting pressure on the dollar. To aggravate the situation, the balance of payment was negatively affected by high food and fuel import bills, disruptions of cashew, and elevated freight costs. Added to high global food and energy prices, strong domestic demand strengthened inflationary pressures in the country. Inflation reached a record high of 18.5% year-on-year in September 2023, but this has reduced to 18.05% in October 2023. This macroeconomic environment makes fiscal policy management and consolidation efforts more difficult as the Central Bank of the Gambia increased its policy rate to curb inflationary pressures. The government of the Gambia intervened using both fiscal and monetary policy instruments to sustain macroeconomic stability and lessen the spillover effects of these global events on the domestic economy. From January to end November 2023, government through the central bank conducted foreign exchange interventions to the tune of $59.28 million to ease the supply side constraint and support the importation of essential commodities that reach critical low stock levels. Government also tightened its monetary policy stance, increasing its policy rate by 400 basis points over the course of the year to curb rising price levels. On the fiscal front, as at October 2023, government provided subsidies on fuel products to the tune of $479 million to ease the effects of high global fuel prices on the lives of the citizenry. Whilst this gave much-needed assistance to the Gambian population, it also meant $479 million of foregone revenue to the government, which is unsustainable given our limited fiscal space. In addition to fuel price subsidies, government made other fiscal interventions, including the provision of substantial subsidies on food and agricultural inputs to the tune of $665 million to support domestic production and to ease the effects of high global food prices on vulnerable households. The 30% basic salary increment implemented last year is also helping civil servants to cope with the increased cost of living. With that said, it is imperative to note that it has been a challenging task striking a balance between fighting the downside effects of recent global economic developments and keeping the economy on a sustained growth path. In the face of uncertainties on global economic development, prudent policy response is essential to strengthen the country's economic fundamentals as the main input to consolidating recovery and accelerating reforms towards building economic resilience and improving the well-being of the population, which is the theme of this year's budget speech. Reforms in key sectors remain critical to strengthening resilience and growth in the medium term. Macroeconomic overview. Developments in the global economy.
Honorable Minister, can you go closer to the mic?
Global economic developments in 2022 have been followed by an increasing resilient global economy, driven largely by the improvement in the services sector. Global supply chain continue to recover from the devastating impact of COVID-19 pandemic, helping to mellow down energy and food prices from their war-induced peaks. In May 2023, the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 as no longer a global health emergency. Concerns about the stability of the banking sector have subsided thanks to the forceful response of policymakers in the US and Europe. Notwithstanding the headwinds that dampened the growth in 2022, continues to constrain economic activities in 2023. Inflation remains high and continues to erode household purchasing power. Monetary policy tightening in response to record high inflation has raised cost of borrowing, restricting credit to productive sectors. China's pace of recovery has slowed and the geopolitical tensions are far from over. High interest rates adversely pass through on public finance, especially in developing countries struggling with increasing debt service payments, limiting the ability of fiscal authorities to respond to emerging challenges and to invest in infrastructure and social sectors such as health and education. Correlated to this, output losses compared to pre-pandemic levels remain large, especially in developing countries. Overall, the global economy is expected to slow down from 3.5% in 2022 to 3% in 2023 and 2.9% in 2024, according to IMF projections. While the forecast for 2023 is modest, it remains well below the historical average of 3.8. Across regions, growth is generating strong in emerging Asia and weakest in the United States and major European economies. Advanced economies are expected to experience pronounced growth slowdown of 1.5% in 2023, 2.6% in 2022. Baseline growth in the United States is expected to be 2.1% in 2023, owing to resilient consumption growth and stronger business environment in the second quarter of 2023, before declining to 1.5% in 2024. This resilience in consumption in the US reflects gains in real incomes and a recovery in vehicle purchases due to still tight labor market conditions. In the euro area, growth is expected to decline from 3.3% in 2022 to 0.7% in 2023, before increasing to 1.2% in 2024, giving improved prospect for tourism and services in Italy and Spain. In Germany, however, growth is expected to contract from 1.8% in 2022 to negative 0.5% in 2023 due to fragility in manufacturing output and slower trading partner demand. The economic growth in emerging markets and developing countries is projected to be broadly stable at 4% in 2023 and 2024. These stable average rates mask wide growth variation between countries and among regions in this group of economies. In emerging and developing Asian economies, growth is expected to increase from 4.5% in 2022 to 5.2% in 2023, owing to an expected rebound in China from 3% in 2022 to 5% in 2023. China's relatively strong growth performance is driven by recovery in consumption. Stronger than expected net exports offset underperformance in investments caused by ongoing real estate slowdown in the country. Similarly, real GDP for emerging and developing economies in Europe is expected to increase by 1.6 percentage points, owing to stronger than expected performance in Russia. The Russia economy registered a growth rate of 2.2% in 2023 from a recession of negative 2.1% in 2022, strengthened by substantial fiscal stimulus, strong investment, and resilient consumption in the context of tight labor markets. On the other hand, growth outlooks have been deteriorating in Latin America and the Caribbean, Middle East, and Central Asia, and Sub-Saharan Africa. In Latin America and the Caribbean, real GDP is expected to decline from 4.1% in 2022 to 2.3% in 2023 and 2024 due to weak recovery in two of the region's largest economies, Brazil and Mexico. In sub-Saharan Africa, economic outlook remains subdued on the back of deteriorating external environment. Growth is expected to fall from 4% in 2022 to 3.3% in 2023 before peaking to 4% in 2024. The downgrade in 2023 largely reflects pessimistic growth projections for both Nigeria and South Africa, the region's two biggest economies. In Nigeria, growth is projected to shrink to 2.9% in 2023 due to security concerns in the oil sector. Likewise, in South Africa, growth is projected to drop to 0.9% in 2023, hindered by power shortage, weak commodity prices, and challenging external environment. Global inflation remains high due to high energy and food prices. Global crude oil price saw its biggest monthly increase in January, which was attributed to the decision by OPEC to cut production levels. The FAO Food Price Index increased by 19.7% due to the suspension of the Black Sea Grain Initiative and India's ban on exporting non-basmati white rice. International prices of rice, in particular, continue to surge, reaching the highest level in almost 12 years. Nonetheless, global headline inflation is expected to decline from a peak of 8.7% in 2022 to 6.9% in 2023. This is projected to decline further to 5.8% in 2024 as central banks raise interest rates to combat inflation. Hence, the monetary tightening around the world and the geopolitical tensions will continue to weigh on economic activities. Developments in the domestic economy, Mr. Speaker. The Gambia's economy is expected to continue its recovery path, although at a slower pace. Real GDP is projected at 5.6% in 2023 compared to 2.9% in 2022 and to 5.3% in 2021, when recovery from the pandemic was underway. This relatively weak performance results from a spillover effects of Russia-Ukraine conflict, which has severely dampened the growth prospects. Previously, optimistic projections have been revised downwards, owing to increasing interest rates to counter rising price levels. The agricultural sector is expected to continue a steady path to recovery after the downturn in 2022. Its growth rate is projected to increase to 8.3% in 2023 compared to 3.6% growth rate in 2022. Growth in the agricultural sector was driven mainly by contributions from fishing and crop production subsectors, with 7.3% and 10.1% respectively. Contributions from forestry and logging is estimated to decline. Performance in industry is also expected to recover on the back of strong performance in the electricity and construction subsectors. Growth in the industry, including construction, is projected at 7.4% in 2023, signaling recovery from the combined effects of the pandemic and the Russia-Ukraine war. The mining and quarry subsector is also expected to remain on a decent path, fueled by the improved supply chain conditions. The services sector is expected to register subdued recovery from the combined effect of COVID-19 and the war in Ukraine. Growth is projected at 3.5% in 2023, with the tourism and wholesale retail trade subsectors being the main drivers of recovery. Tourism is expected to recover from the COVID-19 disruptions by 2026, when the arrivals of tourists is expected to match pre-COVID levels. Overall, growth will continue to be supported by recovery in tourism, strong performance in the construction and agricultural sectors, as well as the robust public and private sector consumptions and investments. The fiscal sector. Revenue and grants increased from 15 billion in the first 9 months of 2022 to 20 billion in the same period in 2023. This is likely due to a rise in both tax and non-tax revenues. The increase in tax revenue collection was mainly due to significant reduction in fuel subsidies, rebound in tourism, cross-border trade, and increased enforcement exercises, and the successful implementation of the Ascuda Wall and an enhanced version of TaxNet in all tax offices. Dividend from the Central Bank of the Gambia also contribute to the revenue performance. Total expenditure on net lending increased from 20.5 billion in the first 9 months to 22.9 during the same period in 2023. This is due to a 19% and 7% increase in capital and recurrent expenditures, respectively. During the first 9 months of 2022, personnel emoluments increased from 4 billion to 5.04 billion as a result of increased allowance payments, including allowance payments to diplomatic staffs and their movements. Interest payments amount to 2.5 billion compared to 2.3 billion a year ago, recording a growth of 8.7%. Domestic and external interest payments increased by 8% and 15% respectively. Overall, fiscal deficit excluding grants improved from 10.2 billion as of end of September 2022 to 8.3 billion in the review period in 2023. Including grants, the deficit also improved from 5.4 billion in 2022 to 2.7 billion in 2023. Revenue loss due to exemptions increased from 2.2 billion in the first 9 months of 2022 to 3.09 billion in 2023. This is largely due to duty waivers granted by the government for the implementation of ongoing road works, agriculture, energy, and education projects. Monetary sector. The monetary policy stance has been restrictive during the year to fight soaring price levels as the government remains committed to maintaining price stability and the overall economic well-being of Gambian citizens. The monetary policy rate was raised to 17% in the monetary policy meeting held in August 2023 from 13% at the beginning of the year. The annual growth in broad money decelerated to 5.6% at end of September 2023 from 9.9% growth in the corresponding period last year. The net foreign assets of the banking system contracted to 19.2 billion at the end of September 2023 from 21.9 billion a year earlier, recording a 12.6% decline. Growth in the net domestic assets of the banking system, the main source of liquidity, remained robust, increasing to 48.4 billion or by 15% at the end of September 2023, but lower than the growth of 30% in September 2022. Reserve money, the bank operating targets, grew by 12.2% in September 2023 compared to a contraction of 6% registered in the corresponding period. Foreign exchange market is operating with challenges in the sector. From October 2022 to September 2023, the volume of transactions measured by the aggregate of purchases and sales of foreign currency decreased to $2.1 billion from 2.5 billion in the same period in 2022. Purchase of foreign currency, which indicates supply, decreased by 15.3% to 1 billion. Similarly, sales of foreign currency declined by 16% to 1.1 billion in the same period. External sector. Preliminary balance of payment estimates show that the current account deficit widened to $209 million in the 9 months to September 2023 from $74 million in the corresponding period. Goods accounts registered a deficit of $702 million in the review period, higher than the $444 million in the previous corresponding period. Exports of goods grew significantly to $215 million in the 9 months of 2023 from $44 million in the same period of 2022. The services account balance is estimated to have registered a surplus of $136 million in the 9 months ending September 2023, up from $19 million in the corresponding period of last year. Secondary income account declined marginally by 0.9% to a net inflow of $372 million. The capital account balance moved to a surplus of 75.6 million in the 9 months of 2023 from a surplus of 23.4 million in the same period of 2022. Developments in the financial account during the review period indicate moderate net incurrence of liabilities as non-resident investments are slightly offset by domestic investments. Total inflow of $159 million was recorded in 9 months ending September 2023 compared to $216 million in the same period a year earlier. On the reserve assets, a confluence of effects of the two external shocks, Ukraine war and COVID-19 pandemic, disrupted the external reserve build-up efforts. Key sectors. Honorable Speaker and members of the Assembly, the government of the Gambia has recently finalized the formulation of a green recovery-focused national development plan for the period 2023 to 2027 with a results framework for monitoring and evaluation purposes. The main goal of the new development plan is to build on gains registered during the 2018 to 2022 NDP and to address the country's recovery needs in the short and medium term, underpinned by the concepts of green recovery and resilience as guiding themes. It aligns with the United Nations Agenda 2030 and the African Union 2063 agenda. Following the cabinet approval, the government of the Gambia has developed a financing strategy to serve as a framework for mobilizing resources and building partnership to implement the plan. The financing strategy takes into consideration the challenging external environment, developments in the international development financial landscape, as well as the domestic financing market. In the face of the limited fiscal space, 3 financing mechanisms have been proposed to meet the funding needs of the recovery-focused NDP, including the development of a domestic resource mobilization strategy to enhance domestic resource generation capabilities, utilization of innovative financing mechanisms for critical development projects, and the utilization of concession funds to attract private capitals and blended finance. Under constrained fiscal conditions characterized by high risk of debt distress, challenges imposed by tight global financial conditions, and increasing cost of capital and debt servicing, financing the plan would require complementing government and concessional resources with greater private sector investment in the country. In this context, carbon financing and grid finance holds considerable potential in supporting the resource mobilization efforts of the country. These mechanisms encompasses instruments like carbon pricing, green bonds, green investment funds, which can create new revenue streams. For instance, projects focused on carbon emissions reduction, such as renewable energy ventures such as solar, wind, and hydro, energy efficiency improvements, and afforestation can generate carbon credits traded in the international market, hence bolstering revenue while addressing the developmental challenges. This approach not only mitigates environmental challenges, but also aligns with the global sustainability goals. In a bid to free up fiscal space and bolster growth, a series of public financial management related reforms have been implemented. These reforms will address fiscal risks emanating from underperforming state-owned enterprises and weakness in public procurement processes, and increase the strategic focus on domestic resource mobilization. To this end, the government has legislated a new Gambia Public Procurement Act that seeks to address weakness in public procurement and strengthen regulatory and oversight function of the procurement authority. The procurement reforms include the introduction of e-procurement, integration of procurement into the budget planning, harmonization of procurement plans with the approved budget of the MDA budgets, and a certification of special procurement units. A further step includes the adoption in September 2023 of regulations to enforce the GPPA Act. On the SOE reform agenda, government will continue to roll out performance contract to SOEs under the supervision of the SOE Commission. Of the 13 SOEs, 4 have signed performance contracts with the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, and the remaining 9 to follow by 2024. Similarly, ensuring that legal, financial, and operational governance framework of the SOE respond to the requirements of the modern day SOE functions, a new SOE Act has been promulgated. On domestic resource mobilization, the Directorate of Revenue and Tax Policy continues to provide strategic focus on policy design, formulation, and analysis of revenue and tax policies that build resilience in our revenue mobilization drive. To boost revenue collection, the government has issued in April 2023 regulations on electronic tax stamp traceability system on accessible goods and fuel products. We have also issued a circular standardizing border clearance procedures and establishing a new risk management system at all border and inland control posts. In addition, the Integrated Financial Management Information System, IFMIS, has been rolled out to all local government authorities, some subvented entities, and all foreign missions to ensure timely preparation and recording of financial information and timely submission of financial statement to the National Audit Office. In this regard, the Ministry of Finance, in partnership with the Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy, is working with the government of Rwanda to support the development of a homegrown IFMIS system using our own human resource base. This will be more cost-effective and will go a long way to eliminate the over-dependence on external consultants for maintenance and support. The 2022 Public Expenditure and Financial Accountability, otherwise known as PIFA, assessment report supported by the African Development Bank highlights weaknesses in the public financial management areas, indicators such as budget reliability, transparency of public finances, management of assets and liabilities, policy-based fiscal strategy and budgeting, predictability and control in budget execution, accounting and reporting, and external scrutiny and audit. The PFM reforms will be geared towards addressing these highlighted weaknesses. For the first time since 2017, the Gambia's overall country policy and institutional assessment, otherwise known as CPIA score, has increased to 3.1% in 2022. Measured by the World Bank, countries are rated on a scale of 1, which is low, to 6, which is high. The improvement in the Gambia's CPIA score reflects improvements in the quality of the country's policies and institutions, owing to efforts being made to improve debt management and inclusive growth, including rural development, social protection, and investment in human capital and infrastructure. The government of the Gambia and the Millennium Challenge Corporation signed a $25 million grant threshold program to support the country's biggest constraint to economic growth, which is the unreliable and inadequate supply of electricity. Every year, each MCC candidate country receives a scorecard assessing performance in 3 policy areas, namely ruling justly, investing in people, and economic freedom. The Gambia has met performance standards of 16 out of the 20 MCC indicators that make up the 3 policy areas and only ranks behind Zambia in sub-Saharan Africa. The government, in collaboration with the IMF, has also conducted a governance diagnostics assessment to identify vulnerabilities in governance and anti-corruption frameworks. The final report offers granular recommendations for strengthening anti-corruption efforts. As a result, a cabinet paper has been submitted for necessary action to be taken once a cabinet recommendation is received. The government, through the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, has consolidated 13 audit findings of suspected fraudulent cases and have referred them to the police for investigation. Furthermore, some cases are currently in court and judgments have been delivered in others. The government of the Gambia, with support from AfriTac West, has formulated an asset management policy to ensure effective management of government assets. The asset management policy provides a detailed framework that governs asset acquisition, utilization, maintenance, and disposal. To implement this policy, the Ministry of Finance has established an asset management policy committee. Presently, the ministry is working on a project proposal and a budget for the upcoming exercise to take stock, value, and record all government assets. The asset management is one of the fundamental pillars towards migrating to International Public Sector Accounting Standards, IPSAS approval system. In addition, the Ministry has played a coordinating role in pursuit of program-based budgeting as prescribed in the PFM Strategy 2021-2025. The Ministry facilitated a workshop to strengthen the conceptual framework for program-based budgeting and enhance the understanding of the program-based budgeting guidelines. This will contribute to the successful implementation of a program-based budgeting in various ministries going forward. With support from the United Nations Development Programme, the Ministry has also developed and validated a new Gambia aid policies to support the effective and efficient use of aid resources through aid coordination activities. The aim of the new policy is to ensure that aid resources are utilized efficiently and effectively by supporting activities of the aid coordination. A cabinet paper has been prepared in this regard. The Ministry coordinated a country portfolio performance review with the World Bank and a project managers forum to discuss progress on ongoing projects. The purpose of these workshops is to bring together government, development partners, and project implementing units to discuss challenges facing the project implementation and provide recommendations to address them. Productive sectors, agriculture. In 2023 fiscal year, agriculture sector has witnessed substantial growth in the scale and number of agricultural projects, underscoring the government's unequivocal commitment to and prioritization of this sector. The Ministry of Agriculture has made commendable progress towards objectives and aims, and continues to engage in partnerships aimed at implementing initiatives aligned with the recovery-focused National Development Plan, further enhancing the sector's transformation. Notably, the Ministry of Agriculture has introduced a comprehensive post-COVID-19 emergency response plan, focusing on bolstering the resilience of farmers through the National Agriculture Extension Policy. This policy is designed to foster sustainable production, enhance capacity, improve governance, and facilitate partnership establishment. Furthermore, the recent introduction of a cooperative policy reflects the Ministry's dedication to foster a nationwide approach to cooperatives while upholding the principles and values that underpin these entities, particularly their autonomy. The policy also outlines essential legal and regulatory measures to facilitate its effective implementation. Within the country, the Ministry of Agriculture is channeling its efforts towards prioritizing rice value chain, small ruminant improvement, and the development of a national strategy to combat and eradicate pests. Notably, the prevalent livestock diseases in the country include PPR and the Newcastle disease for poultry are being addressed through extensive vaccination campaigns for small ruminants and poultry. In the current year, a significant total of 208,231 small ruminants have been vaccinated. In addition to these efforts, the Roots Project has played a vital role by offering crucial services such as plowing assistance for 80 hectares of land, distributing 160 bags of urea fertilizer, and providing input materials including 2,800 sachets of herbicides and 5,300 kilograms of seeds through the Rural Poor Stimulus Facility. The Small Ruminant Enhancement Project is dedicated to development of community pasture fields and individual farms. To date, it has successfully established 20 community pasture schemes and facilitated the development of 150 individual 1-hectare farms covering a total of 150 hectares. While food availability in the market remains generally robust across the country, there has been notable increase in the price of cereal products in 2023 compared to the preceding year. This price surge is primarily attributed to global inflation and the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. The Gambia's dependence on food imports has amplified the impact on the prices of basic commodities, further exacerbated by the continuous rise in fuel prices, which has subsequently led to elevated transportation costs. The National Agricultural Research Institute and the FAO have achieved significant milestones in agricultural research. This includes the final screening availability of 5 groundnut varieties, 5 new Findi varieties, 3 cassava varieties to benefit local farmers. The Institute has also pioneered the development of innovative technologies for livestock feed, soil fertility enhancement, leveraging indigenous multipurpose shrubs and tree species. To support this development, the 2024 budget allocation to the agricultural sector increased by 17%, with about $500 million budgeted for input subsidy, including support for organic fertilizer and seeds for farmers. In addition to the government budgetary contribution to the sector, the project loans and grants dedicated to the agricultural sector is in excess of $2 billion for 2024. Donor funding continues to be relevant for the sector, supplementing government's effort to transform the agricultural sector. The Ministry of Agriculture is expected to receive $661 million from ADB for implementing the Building Resilience Against Food and Nutrition Insecurity Project, the Gambia Agricultural Food Security Project, and the Agriculture Incentive-Based Risk-Sharing System for the Agricultural Lending Project, the Africa Emergency Facility Project Fund as well. The ministry also received $231 million from the World Bank Group for the Gambia Inclusive Rice Value Chain, GIRAFFE, and another $686 million for the small ruminants and the rice value chain and regional soil mapping projects. Furthermore, IFAD is expected to provide the Ministry of Agriculture with $140 million for roads project. Fisheries and water resources. The fisheries sector is faced with increasing number of challenges ranging from degradation of habitats, overexploitation, and climate change and variability, and COVID-19 effects of the current Russia-Ukraine war. The latter has increased oil prices for the seagoing vessels and has impacted the average cost of fish. To address the managerial gaps confronting the fisheries sector, the Ministry of Fisheries is currently reviewing the instrument governing the fisheries sector, including the Fisheries Act of 2007 and its implementing regulation of 2008. Cabinet has approved the review of the fishing license for the fishing vessels and fish meal factories operating in the country. The Ministry of Justice is currently finalizing the necessary legislation and subsequent gazetting of the proposals for immediate implementation. The $25 million Climate Resilient Fishery Initiative for Livelihood Projects, funded by the Green Climate Fund, was recently launched, and the project implementation has started. The overarching objective of the project is to conserve and protect fisheries resources and their habitat through sustainable mitigation and adaptation measures, thereby enhancing climate resilience and fishing communities, and enhancing the livelihood of fishing communities. 2 climate-friendly fish smoking ovens, fish drying racks, and fish processing materials and equipment have been installed at Tanje and Gunjur fish landing sites. These innovative technologies will reduce post-harvest losses, enhance the life of fish products, and improve the income status of actors in the value chain. The construction of 2 fishing landing sites is also underway at Tanje and Gunjur at a tune of $12 million, funded under the EU-Gambia Sustainable Fisheries Partnership Agreement. Activities at the established Fisheries Monitoring Center in Banjul is ongoing. This platform, equipped with vessel monitoring system and automated identification hardware and software, will enable Fisheries Department to monitor the activities of all licensed fishing vessels operating in the fishing waters of the Gambia from base. The establishment of the facility will enhance the ability of the Fisheries Department to detect spatial offenses by vessels with ample evidence to successfully prosecute cases under the law. In the area of water resources, the sector is presently undergoing major reforms. Among them include the development of a new water bill to replace the National Water Resource Council Act of 1979 and the preparation of 2 additional bills for the creation of the Gambia's Water Resource Management Authority and an authority to provide meteorological services and up-to-date climate information. The Gambia has also acceded to 2 United Nations Water Conventions on the 17th of July 2023 during the High-Level Forum on Sustainable Development. With support from UNESCO and the World Food Programme, the government procured 8 automatic weather stations to increase the accuracy of the ministry's weather forecast and monitoring. In addition, the strengthening of the Gambia Climate Change Early Warning System Project Phase 2 has been undertaken and enhanced the capacity for climate detection, climate warning information. The Climate Smart Rural Water Supply and Sanitation Project, funded by AFDB, will construct and install 55 large solar-powered pipe water supply systems that will provide safe and quality drinking water to additional 250,000 rural people. Upon completion in December 2024, this intervention will significantly increase the number of Gambians with access to potable, safe, and quality drinking water and proper sanitation. The government of the Gambia has allocated $10 million for drilling of boreholes, reticulation systems, and solar-powered systems for 10 rural communities, in addition to the 110 boreholes which have been successfully drilled by the contractor and is undergoing implementation. The Department of Water Resources, through the Climate Smart Water projects funded by the ADB, has developed a WASP map and established a functional web-based monitoring evaluation system which was launched on the 28th of May 2023. The government of the Gambia, through the Ministry of Finance, is engaging the ADB to mobilize resources for water supply infrastructure for the remaining 53 project sites. Communication and digital economy. In a bid to offshoot research and innovation for employment creation and local development in the ICT, the Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy, in partnership with the University of the Gambia, is working on implementing a technology hub and the extension of the initiative across 3 regions in the country. The ministry is currently finalizing the Cyber Crime Bill as well as the Data Protection and Privacy Bill 2023 to safeguard the Gambia cyberspace and ensure a resilient digital transformation process. Both bills are expected to be submitted to the National Assembly for enactment by the end of 2023. In addition, the ministry plans to roll out advanced cybersecurity and cybercrime training and has identified formulation of a cybersecurity regulatory framework as a priority intervention in 2024. In an effort to revitalize and reposition Gamtel-Gamcel, the ministry is drafting a national fiber protection policy to address the network interruptions caused by frequent cuts on the national fiber backbone. The government is supporting Gamtel's network upgrade and expansion initiatives geared towards enhancing inclusivity, providing adequate redundancy, and building resilience. To achieve this, the government will restructure Gamtel and privatize Gamcel in a bid to attract and induce the much-needed capital to help revive the sector and restore its competitiveness. Furthermore, the ministry is prioritizing the development of a comprehensive national postal service policy and strategy, along with a thorough review of the existing Postal Services Act to ensure that it is up to date and entails modern-day realities of postal services. In accelerating the digital terrestrial transmission process, the ministry continues to intensify resource mobilization efforts for the deployment of a robust platform that will anchor the digital migration process, ensure nationwide coverage, and provide better quality television transmission. Honorable Speaker, we now turn to the Tourism and Culture Ministry. The tourism sector is expected to continue its recovery throughout 2023 as the sector navigates through a challenging economic and geopolitical environment. Several initiatives have been implemented to increase the number of tourist arrivals and consequently its contribution to GDP. Some of these include awareness creation programs on tourism products and services, e-marketing activities, overseas representation, and sub-regional market representations, joint market campaigns with stakeholders, trade shows, and ad hoc marketing. Efforts are also being made to develop the tourism product suite. The construction of 3 cluster roads, totaling 2 kilometers within the Western Coast Tourism Development Area roads have been completed. Construction is underway for 3 new eco-lodges in the North Bank, Central River, and Upper River regions. These eco-lodges have been established to address the challenges of providing decent accommodation for tourists in the locals and the locals in the rural areas. The Sotuma Samba Koi Eco Lodge has been successfully completed and has been handed over to the Gambia Tourism Board. This initiative will greatly improve upcountry accommodation and attract tourists to these regions. The construction of new craft market has been successfully completed for craft vendors in Palmarima. The craft market is well built with 30 stalls, and plans are on the way to build more stalls next year to accommodate more vendors. The Ministry of Tourism and Culture, through Gambia Tourism and Hospitality Institute, has brought training to the doorsteps of rural youths and women through the TVET on Wheels initiative. The collaboration with the National Accreditation and Quality Assurance, NACA, has also led to the development and monitoring of occupational standards aimed at improving quality and standards in the sector. In the area of culture, the ministry has completed the regulations for the operationalization of the National Endowment Funds for Arts and Culture. This fund will support the financing of arts and culture-related activities in the country and help to create jobs among the youths. It is envisaged that the fund will be operational by 2024, and the ministry, through the National Council of Arts and Culture, has also successfully completed the quadrennial periodic reporting of the United Nations of the UNESCO 2005 Convention on the protection and promotion of diversity of cultural expressions. In January 2024, the Gambia government will commemorate the bicentenary of the establishment of Georgetown, now called Janjambure, as an asylum for liberated Africans in 1823. The festival will invigorate the conservation and display of authentic Gambian culture, strengthen national cohesion, and boost tourism for economic growth. Under the World Bank project, under the World Bank Tourism Diversification Project and Resilience Project, the Kunta Kinte Island will receive major conservation interventions starting in the last quarter of 2024. This project aims to improve the diversification and resilience of the Gambian tourism sector by strengthening institutional and policy reforms and improving the capabilities and access to funds for tourism-related micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, and building resilience through the strengthening of sustainable coastal infrastructure and rehabilitation of existing tourism sites. Ministry of Trade, Industry, Regional Integration, and Employment. The ministry plays a pivotal role in enhancing the export market and facilitating access to international markets for Gambian products. The ministry supports agricultural value addition, small and medium-sized enterprises, in addition to smart technologies and facilities access to export financing. The ministry prioritizes the establishment of accredited testing laboratories for both food and non-food products to help local producers meet global standards. In addition, a new legal meteorological bill is set to be presented before the National Assembly with the intention of merging the Gambian Standards Bureau and the Weights and Measures Bureau to improve operational efficiency and effectiveness. In the realm of industrialization, the ministry is actively pursuing construction of a special economic zone along the Trans-Gambia corridor. A feasibility study has been commissioned to assess the viability of this project, and efforts are underway to mobilize resources for the necessary infrastructure. Furthermore, the ministry plans to establish 3 additional agropoles to strategically focus on value addition crops along the recognized trade corridors. Facilitating investment is a key focus, and the government, through the ministry, is in the process of reviewing the GAIPA Act of 2015. The government acknowledges the challenges faced by investors in acquiring land for commercial activities, which is crucial for boosting economic productivity. To address this issue, a high-level technical committee is being formed to collaborate with regional governors and allocate land for commercial activities. These lands will be held by GAIPA under a head lease arrangement. In 2023, the government has provided incentives to 11 companies through the GAIPA Special Investment Certificate. These companies are projected to invest $37.4 million and create 1,000 jobs. Most of the investments are concentrated in the manufacturing sector, and roughly half of them are led by domestic investors. The Gambia Competition and Consumer Protection Commission has been diligently working to protect consumer rights and ensure competition. The Commission has successfully handled 88 consumer cases with a total value of $1.9 million, conducted market investigation into essential commodities, and has taken decisive actions against businesses found in violation of Competition Act of 2007. The Commission also initiated bi-weekly market surveillance of essential commodities to combat anti-competitive practices and carry out weekly inspection of expired products to safeguard consumers and in compliance with the Consumer Protection Act of 2014. Recognizing the importance of improving labor conditions and enhancing employment and productivity, the government has launched a new employment policy for 2023 to 2028 with the objective of creating 150,000 jobs over the 5-year period. In line with modern labor standards and practices, the government has also enacted a revised Labor Act of 2023. To further enhance the policy environment, the Ministry of Trade plans to submit a revised Injuries Compensation Bill, revised Factories Act of 1963, Trade Union Bill, and the Trade Union Bill for consideration in 2024. These initiatives collectively reflect government's commitment to strengthen labor administrative systems for betterment of workers and the economy. Ministry of Works, Construction and Infrastructure. The rehabilitation of roads, sewage and drainage systems in the project seeks to rehabilitate and the pump at Bond Road and install new pumps to evacuate stormwater during the rainy season. Currently, 98% of the road component in the initial scope and 87% of those in the additional works have been completed as at the end of September 2023. As part of the OIC Infrastructure Development Project for the hosting of the upcoming OIC Heads of State Summit in the Gambia, the construction of 50-kilometer urban roads, which requires upgrading 17 roads in the urban network, is currently ongoing. This project intends to decongest urban traffic with safe, attractive, and vibrant links, leading to efficient traffic management during summit and beyond. The government has also committed funds to the construction of 86-kilometer Nyomi-Hakalang and other secondary roads to support the country's transport sector. The purpose of the project is to upgrade the existing gravel road and tracks in Nyomi-Hakalang to a modern standard road with a bituminized sealed carriageway and shoulders, appropriate drainage structures, modern road furniture, and safety facilities. The government has also embarked on an exercise to reform aviation sector in the country to make it more efficient and viable. This involves separation of regulatory and service provisions functions in the industry in line with international standards and recommended practice. The decoupling process is ongoing and will culminate in the establishment of a new airport company and a civil aviation authority, which will focus on regulatory oversight. In addition, government plans to enter into a PPP arrangement in operations and management of the Banjul International Airport. This is envisaged such that reforms will enhance the performance of the aviation industry and contribution to the economy. As part of the preparation for the hosting of OIC Summit, scheduled to take place in May 2024, the construction of a new VVIP, very important personnels, lounge and rehabilitation of the terminal at the airport has been completed. These improvements will enhance operational capacity at Banjul International Airport in line with government strategic objectives to improve air transport facilities and infrastructure. The African Development Bank approved the financing of the procurement of a new green ferry as part of the Banjul Port Fourth Expansion Project at a tune of $13 million. The ferry is about the size of the current Kunta Kinte ferry, which will greatly improve the ferry crossing times between Banjul and Bara. The green ferry will contribute to the SDG on carbon emission reduction and also contribute towards green recovery-focused national development plan. The country's huge infrastructure deficit is being addressed. Currently, 350-kilometer road construction contracts have been awarded, hence the increased budgetary allocation to this sector. Petroleum and energy. The energy sector has been severely hit by the spillover effects of the Russia-Ukraine war, with spikes in fuel prices, depreciation of the dollar-cess, and the shortage of foreign currency, creating challenges in the sector. Consequently, NAWEC experienced a huge jump in fuel, lubricant, and spare part costs of over 25% compared to pre-war prices. Freight costs and logistics challenges have also made it extremely difficult to get the needed spare parts on time, coupled with a 50% increase in the freight. Karantaba is going through the advanced stages of procurement. In addition, there are ongoing electricity access projects covering 800 communities with the aim of meeting the universal access by the end of 2025. The upgrading of NAWEC transmission and distribution network from 33 kilovolts to 225 kilovolts and the control center interventions are all geared towards modernizing the country's electricity infrastructure and to enhance the quality of electricity supplies. The water and sanitation network rehabilitation project to the tune of $22.5 million, which aim to minimize the current water shortages, is expected to be completed by 2025. The Ministry of Energy and Petroleum, through the Geology Department, has made substantial efforts in the management of mineral resources for the well generation. Additional flagships will be formulation of a minerals and mining policy for the establishment of a mining cadastral system for the Gambia in 2024. Moreover, special approvals for overland importation of fuel products from Senegal were granted as a stopgap measure to avoid fuel stockout. Furthermore, to address the stability of fuel supply in the country, the Gambia National Petroleum Company, GNPC, in 2023 has, in its expansion drive, continued to build additional fuel stations in line with their strategic plan. Social sectors, Honorable Speaker, basic and secondary education. By its mandate of ensuring universal access to education, the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education is undertaking a review of its education policy, which covers the period 2016 to 2030. A comprehensive consultation is ongoing with key stakeholders to address the inherent weakness and capture pertinent emerging issues while consolidating gains registered so far. This will guide education service delivery in the Gambia from early childhood to tertiary and higher education for the remainder of the policy period. To ensure quality education delivery at all levels, the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education, through collaborative efforts of the Gambia College, University of the Gambia, and the University of Science and Technology, USET, continue to train and increase the number of qualified teachers across all levels. The ministry has also embarked on a comprehensive curriculum review for all levels, and a new curriculum framework has been developed and translated into Arabic and French. As a result, the ministry made TVET a priority in line with government's desire to invest in skills development initiatives that enhance independent learning, creativity, interpersonal skills, and critical thinking capabilities. Furthermore, the ministry updated the 2014 scheme of service to improve the working condition of teachers across all levels. This is in pursuit of the government's commitment and resolve to address both contemporary and emerging issues confronting the teaching cadre. The new service scheme will guide the operation, recruitment, redeployment, and posting of teachers and non-teaching cadres as outlined in the revised General Orders 14-101 dated September 2013. To improve the health and nutrition of children, the government, in collaboration with the World Food Programme and the United States support implemented through Caritas, has scaled up the homegrown school feeding intervention in the Lower River region and the West Coast region. A plan has been put in place to intervene in 186 schools, which started in October 2023, with an estimated 51,000 students expected to benefit from the program. With support from the MRC Holland Foundation, over 775 new classrooms and 1,030 toilet cubicles with facilities to cater for physically challenged students between madrasas and conventional schools are being constructed to make quality education affordable and accessible to all parts of the country. Rehabilitation works for classrooms and other basic amenities for both students and management staff are ongoing in 10 schools across the regions. This is geared towards teacher motivation, welfare improvement, and performance enhancement. The importance of basic education to investment in human capital development forms the basis for this sector's attraction of the second highest budgetary allocation after debt service. Higher education. As part of government-wide effort to enhance effective and efficient service delivery, the ministry has signed performance contracts with chairpersons of all governing councils and boards of tertiary and higher education institutions under its supervision. The ministry has also established tertiary and higher education trust fund aimed at providing financial support to tertiary and higher education institutions, a national research and innovation fund to improve entrepreneurship and product development, thereby enhancing employability and job creation. These interventions are being implemented to increase equitable access to quality tertiary and higher education for all Gambians. Through NACA, the ministry has launched the Gambia's first ever national qualification framework to harmonize all qualifications for well-functioning and skill-driven labor market system. The USET, which is the Transform GTTI, has begun operations at Ndemban Skills Center in West Coast region with 100 students, all given government scholarships. Kanila Skills Center is also ready for use and will provide a one-year bridging program for madrasa students. The Masakongo TVET Center in LRR and the Julangel TVET Center in URR have all been refurbished and provide dormitories for both male and female students, just as the Gambia College Basse Annex. These are geared towards increasing access to tertiary and higher education countrywide, including TVET. Through funding from the World Bank, the ministry is establishing 2 TVET centers of excellence, one focusing on agribusiness in Sapo and the other on fisheries in Gunjur. These centers of excellence will mainstream innovation and entrepreneurship in their programs. Lot 1 of the fixed package of the University of the Gambia development project has been completed, and lectures have commenced at the Farafara Banta campus with a state-of-art facilities. Lot 2 of the fixed package, including 2 more second schools and chancery building, as well as road networks of the campus, has kickstarted. The process of transforming the critical public institutions, such as Management Development Institute and the Gambia College, into Civil Service College and National Education University, respectively, is also ongoing. The ministry has set up committees to lead the transformation, and the Committee on MDI Transformation has just presented its report for implementation. Health. The Ministry of Health is committed to providing accessible, affordable, and responsive healthcare services, focusing on primary healthcare, efficient service delivery, a well-trained healthcare workforce, and a robust health infrastructure. This policy direction serves as the first line of defense against outbreaks, promoting health and reducing inequality. Before the pandemic, Western Regions 1 and 2 had non-functional incinerators, prompting actions such as procuring environmentally friendly waste treatment machines, containerized dual-chamber incinerators, and refrigerated waste collection trucks to improve healthcare waste management. Infrastructure projects include new health facilities and enhanced healthcare capacity for effective response to health challenges and emergencies. A postgraduate training program at the Edward Francis Teaching Hospital reduces the cost of training medical professionals. The country's commitment to primary health care has led to improved health, especially in maternal and child health and communicable disease treatment. The ministry also advances control and prevention of HIV and TB with increasing accessibility to service. In collaboration with partners, the ministry enhances health emergency preparedness, engages in risk communication, and implements early warning systems. In 2024, the ministry's focus is on enhancing healthcare service, improving infrastructure, procuring equipment, and strengthening the healthcare workforce, all in line with the goal of achieving universal health coverage. In the Gambia, HIV and AIDS continue to be a public health problem, and the prevalence in the general population is 1.5%. Currently, prevention programs, strategies are reinforced using information gathered and appropriate programs designed to ensure the continuum of care for affected persons, with the ultimate objective of reducing HIV transmission among community and suppressing viral loads in patients. The Gambia government continues to receive support from Global Fund to fight HIV and AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. The country coordinating mechanism of the Global Fund, National AIDS Secretariat, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Health, and other partners has successfully negotiated a grant in the tune of $23.4 million to fight HIV and AIDS, tuberculosis, and healthcare system of the Gambia. The implementation of the grant will begin 1st of January 2024 and run to December 2026 as a continuation of the 2020 to 2023 funding cycle. Additionally, the Global Fund has committed funds to support the provision of CT scan as part of the country's health system strengthening for $2.4 million. As part of the Global Fund support, the Gambia has been awarded $7.9 million to cover unfunded demand in the following strategic priorities areas: TB mitigation, surveillance and data, oxygen and respiratory care, laboratory systems and diagnostics networks, community health works for implementation in 2024. Equally, malaria program of the Ministry of Health has received recommendation for grant making following the submission of the Grant Cycle 7 Proposal 2 to continue the implementation of the malaria prevention and control strategy for the country, and a grant of $17.5 million is allocated by the Global Fund for implementation from 2024 to 2027. In addition, the Gambia is a beneficiary of the Biden Malaria Initiative, which will award $4 million annually. Gender and Ministry of Gender, Children, and Social Welfare. The government is dedicated to achieving gender equality, equity, and promoting women participation in all social, political, and economic activities. In line with this, the Central Bank of the Gambia has provided $17 million to the Women Enterprise Fund, which will help to expand investment in the productive sectors of the economy by supporting women horticultural producers. A total of 435 women groups throughout the country has benefited from this lending facility. The Gambia government has requested the implementation of the Sahel Women Empowerment Demographic Dividend Project with a budget of $25 million over a period of 5 years. The Regional Suite Project aims to increase access to education, economic opportunities, and healthcare services for girls, women, and to strengthen the institutional environment for gender equality across the region. The Gambia has already received $1.2 million as part of the preparation process. The Ministry of Gender, Children, and Social Welfare and the UNDP jointly implemented the Women Gardens Project to build resilience of communities to climate change effects. The project seeks to address constraints affecting women and youth in the horticultural sector with the aim of increasing their productivity, profitability, and sustainability using a value chain approach. The project covers 4 main components: production support, processing and packaging, marketing and promotion, and participatory planning, monitoring, and evaluation. As part of the government's response to the adverse effect of COVID-19 and the spillover effects of the Russia-Ukraine war, Family Strengthening Program has supported vulnerable families and elderly persons with cash transfers to improve their nutrition and living standards. The program, which started in 2020, has supported 500 vulnerable families and 250 vulnerable elderly persons, amounting to $1.25 million from 2020 to 2023. The government intends to expand this program to include 3,000 beneficiaries with support from the EU to the tune of $30 million. Social sector, Honorable Speaker. The government has demonstrated its commitment to social protection by articulating in the recently formulated Green Recovery Focused National Development Plan with its Pillar 5 as empowerment, social inclusion, and leaving no one behind. The National Social Protection Secretariat has spearheaded the development of the Gambia Social Registry, an integrated database and information system which will transform the way social protection services are delivered. It is gratifying to mention that even at its embryonic stage, the Gambia Social Registry has supported 5 programs, including the lean season support implemented by the WFP. Going forward, the government will utilize the Gambia Social Registry for better targeting of subsidies in the future. Government will gradually mainstream social assistance into the national budget rather than rely on ad hoc and project-based cash transfers. In 2024, government, in collaboration with the EU, will pilot the expansion of the Family Strengthening Program at the Department of Social Welfare. The target beneficiaries will be orphans, vulnerable children, persons with disabilities, and older persons. Social protection expenditures in key sectors include the following: ongoing health. In the area of health, the government has established the National Health Insurance Scheme, which is expected to contribute to reducing out-of-pocket health expenditure. In addition, more direct social protection sensitive budget lines in the government has expended $160.9 million year to date, which involves critical spending on vaccines and other essential medical supplies to the benefit of our poor and most vulnerable people. Government expenditure on social protection in the education sector approximately stands at $420 million. This includes school improvement grants, teaching aids and learning materials, open scholarships and bursaries, school bus services, and school feeding program, which go a long way to improving both access and quality, especially for poor and vulnerable children. To consolidate the gains, there will be direct legislation on social assistance sector through Social Protection Bill currently being discussed in this August House. This bill will seek to set standards of social service delivery to the poor and vulnerable communities, especially the marginalized groups, such as people living with disabilities, widows, orphans, and people living with HIV, among others. Youth and sports. The government of the Gambia is committed to prioritizing youth empowerment and sports development. This is due to the country's demographic structure, where young people make up the largest demographic group and dominate in the sports industry. The National Youth Council has implemented various programs aimed at empowering youth in the area of leadership, entrepreneurship, and career development. The Council has been actively engaging policymakers to advocate for policies that benefit young people and to ensure that youth's perspective is captured in decision-making. The National Youth Council has partnered with local authorities across the country to promote and engage the participation of women and youth in leadership roles and politics. The National Youth Service Scheme has helped equip youths with the prerequisite skills and knowledge to become productive citizens. A total number of 5,470 young persons have been supported in various skills, including electrical installations, construction, masonry, rice, agronomy, horticulture, auto mechanics, tailoring, carpentry, plumbing, electronics, catering, welding, and fabrication. In collaboration with the University of the Gambia, the scheme has launched the National Youth Service Graduate Program in September 2023, targeting 100 University of the Gambia graduates for a one-year piloting period. The program aims to empower young people, provide them with an opportunity to serve the country, and create a pathway for knowledge building, skills acquisition, and employment opportunities. The National Enterprise Development Initiative has successfully established business incubation centers that provide comprehensive training to young entrepreneurs in business development through a combination of mentoring and coaching. NEDI has also partnered with International Organization for Migration to provide business management training to 300 migrant returnees, with the IOM providing reintegration package to support this initiative. The initiative has contributed towards job creation and economic empowerment, which has helped the youth to become self-reliant and play an active role in the economic development. Government has fully provided and funded support grant of $50,000 each to 32 youths and women entrepreneurs. During the review period, the National Sports Council improved sports infrastructure and conducted talent identification and development programs across various sports disciplines. Gambian athletes showcased the country's sporting potential by delivering impressive performance in international competitions, bringing pride to the nation. In the same period, senior national football team participated in the 2024 AFCON qualifiers and qualified for the second time after 2021 AFCON. Additionally, the under-20 national football team won a silver medal at the African Under-20 Cup Championship, qualifying for the Under-20 World Cup to be held in Argentina. In addition to the budget allocation, the ministry is funded through the levy for sports and youths amounting to more than $90 million. This reflects the diverse funding source for the sector. Cross-cutting sector, Honorable Speaker. Interior. The government has embarked on several reforms to ensure that security services are more professional and responsive in service delivery. The Ministry of Interior has drafted a bill for the Peace and Reconciliation Commission and established a peace-building unit, which is near completion. As a result, the ministry has hired a peace-building facilitator to operationalize the peace-building unit and has developed internal security policies. These are all geared towards supporting the implementation of the government's peace and reconciliation programs. Furthermore, the Janjambure prison staff quarters have been constructed, and 3 cells at Joshua have been renovated to alleviate inmate congestion at Mile 2 prisons. Globally, prison centers are required to adopt correctional principles as per the Mandela rules in the rehabilitation process of inmates. In this regard, the government has embarked on strategic reform initiative, including the Janjambure Prison Rice Field and Fish Fund, Multi-Purpose Center, Horticulture Gardening in Joshua, Prison Camp, Poultry and Animal Husbandry. Prison officers and inmates have received information technology training, and senior officers are trained in collaboration with the Nigeria Correctional Services. The Gambia Police Force will continue to work with the communities and other relevant stakeholders in the fight against crimes and criminalities. This strong partnership and collaboration lead to the construction of 4 model police stations in Serekunda, Bundung, Bakote, and Brusubi by the German Agency for International Cooperation, and the development of policies such as gender mainstreaming policy, internal investigation policy, and the deployment policy by the Geneva Center for Security Sector Governance. The government will continue to expand and strengthen the practice of human rights and rule of law in the Gambia through the use of robust community policing activities and programs. Personnel of the Gambia Police Force remain topmost priority of the government, as more police quarters are expected to be constructed or renovated, including maintenance of existing bus services. The government of the Gambia will work with relevant partners to mobilize resources for the realization of this maiden dream police college in Kiang, and the revitalization of the police radio communication system for timely and effective response to incidences. To usher in modern-day policing, the police force intends to migrate from its usual paper-based case file compilation to the digital West African Police Information Database system known as WAPSI. In addition, the Gambia Police Force will create new canine, that is dog, highway patrol units to address the current realities of modern-day policing in the fight against crimes and to reduce road incidents. The government intends to construct staff quarters for the Gambia Fire and Rescue Services in Basse and Farafenye, and to construct other fire stations both in the urban and rural Gambia. Additionally, the government will construct multi-purpose fire and rescue services and training academy in Mandinaring, provide adequate gear for sea rescue operations, and improve the capacity of ambulance and paramedic service delivery. This will improve the capacity of operationalizing firefighting. Given the rising number of young people falling victim to drug abuse, the government of the Gambia, through the Drug Law Enforcement Agency, has intensified its demand reduction activities, making efforts to establish a rehabilitation center to cater for the plight of drug victims. This is a positive step towards approaching the drug abuse as a public health problem rather than as a matter of criminal justice. The National Drug Control Strategy 2019 to 2023, which is in its final year of implementation, will continue to provide general guidance on the agency's activities. Information. The government has been working on the transformation of the information and communication landscape through effective consultation, collaboration, and collective delivery. The Ministry of Information, in collaboration with Freedom House, has developed a medium-term strategic plan spanning 2024 to 2028. The Ministry, in partnership with the National Democratic Institute, has developed the Access to Information Implementation Framework to outline the implementation timelines and work schedules for full-scale implementation of the 2021 ATI Act. The framework has been validated by the stakeholders in late September 2023 and will be adopted as the national roadmap. Through support from the National Democratic Institute, the ministry developed the National Communication Framework that is expected to establish systemic anchor for the emergence of a scientific approach to development of a coherent public sector communication regime. The Ministry of Information, in collaboration with the Communication and Digital Economy Ministry, is in the process of presenting a cabinet paper on personal data protection and privacy bill to advance data security, processing, storage, and dissemination. In addition, the ministry, in consultation with Ministries of Finance and Justice, will develop information, media, and broadcasting bill to give stimulus to current efforts designed to establish a vibrant information value chain that meets the collective expectation of diverse stakeholders. Justice, Honorable Speaker, the implementation of the TRRC recommendation is progressing well underway under the leadership of the Justice Ministry. The implementation plan, launched in May this year, is at a widely attended stakeholder conferences and donor table is underway. In the area of justice and accountability, the Ministry of Justice has completed the drafting of 2 critical legislation which will soon be laid before this August Assembly. These are the Special Prosecutor's Office and the Special Accountability Mechanism bills, respectively. Through these legislations and others to come, the ministry seeks to create an accountability mechanism which will consist of a Special Prosecutor's Office, a hybrid tribunal, and Special Criminal Division of the High Court of the Gambia. Concerning the reparation, the passing of the Victims Commission Bill during your last session was a great milestone in this regard. Once the Act comes into force, Victims Commission will be established within the first quarter of 2024. The Commission will administer the Victims Fund, admit new victims, maintain a victims database, and also reassess and establish a fair quantum of compensation for the various types of injuries suffered. In the area of institutional and legislative reforms, the government, through the Ministry of Justice, has embarked on an ambitious reform agenda, which is an unprecedented number of draft legislation that are pending before this August Assembly. Many more sectors and institutional legislation are on their way to be brought before you in the course of your in the near future for your consideration. During your last extraordinary session, this Assembly also passed the ban from public office TRRC bill, the former President's bills, and the Commission of Inquiry Amendment bill, respectively. Additionally, earlier this year, this August Assembly passed the Prevention and Prohibition of Torture Act 2023, thereby domesticating the Convention Against Torture for the first time in the Gambia. In this current session, this Assembly is expected to consider and pass the Criminal Offences Bill, the Criminal Procedures Bill, and the Anti-Corruption Bill. In addition to the transitional justice process, the Ministry of Justice continues to deliver its core mandate, including criminal prosecution, civil litigation, and the provision of quality and timely legal service to the government, department, ministries, and agencies, and the Gambians' overseas missions. Public service, administrative reform, policy coordination, and delivery. As part of the Civil Service Reform Program 2018 to 2027, the government is working on a number of initiatives with a view to making the civil service more efficient and effective, to be more responsive to the needs of the citizenry. In this regard, the government, with support from the World Bank, is preparing a public administration modernization project which aims to improve the fiscal and human resource management capability for the improved service delivery. The Personnel Management Office has initiated the process of functionally reviewing ministries, departments, and agencies to streamline and rationalize the overlapping roles of MDAs. PMO has taken charge of the administration and management of public service pensions after the coming into force of the Public Service Pensions Act 2022. This has helped in making the pensions payment process in the civil service faster and less cumbersome. With the new system, the retirement benefits of retired civil servants are now processed within 30 working days. Furthermore, PMO has carried out capacity building trainings for ICT's officers of various MDAs on the management and monitoring of the biometric time attendance systems to improve work ethics of civil servants and other performance accountability measures. These trainings aim to strengthen the institutionalization of the biometric time attendance system. The Ministry of Public Service is working on linking the biometric time attendance machines to a centralized server with a view to enhancing effective monitoring of attendance in the civil service. As the technical arm of the ministry, the Department of Strategy, Policy and Delivery has continued to provide instrumental support to the Office of the President. The delivery unit remains steadfast in its mission, serving as the executive diligent eye, ensuring projects across the board are tracked, measured, and steered towards timely completion. In this quest, the department pivots around three fundamental activities: delivery forum, compendium of government infrastructure projects, and the program for accelerated community development. Environment, climate change, and wildlife. The government, in collaboration with local, regional, and international partners, is incessantly working to preserve the country's environment and natural resources. Through the ministry, the government is in the process of formulating a legal regulatory framework that would guide the carbon trading market in the Gambia to better manage climate risk. The ministry successfully also launched the West African Coastal Area Resilient Investment Program, otherwise known as WACA, at a cost of $46 million in May 2023. This project is designed to improve flood and coastal risk management in selected risk-prone areas in Greater Banjul area. In addition, the National Environmental Agency recently established a Geographical Information System Training Center to build capacity in the GIS and remote sensing technologies across all sectors of the government. In a bid to improve the forest cover, the ministry granted technical support to 620 communities to undergo comprehensive preliminary community forest management agreement. This exercise has increased the total forest cover under community forest schemes to 45,237 hectares nationwide. The department has distributed 250,000 polypods and seeds of assorted indigenous tree species to all central nurseries nationwide for seedling propagation totaling 617 tree species of malina and mangroves across the country. The ministry has also engaged in the expansion of 3 protected areas of 24,000 hectares. This brings the total area under protected area coverage to 92,549 hectares, representing 9.2% of the national land mass. The designation of the first man and biosphere reserve in the Gambia is in progress, awaiting approval from UNESCO. The development of the EU LIVE project is completed and approval is granted for implementation 2024. On the restoration of the mangrove ecosystem, the ministry has planted 4,000 hectares of mangrove ecosystem to support the improvement of the marine ecosystem, which could be used for carbon trading in the near future. Lands regional government. The government of the Gambia, through an additional financing of $45 million from the World Bank for the Giraffe project, is developing the first national land policy for the country. The Giraffe project will now introduce a new subcomponent, otherwise called securing access to land, of which resources will be allocated to support the Ministry of Lands to formulate an inclusive, gender-sensitive, and climate change-informed national land policy to guide land tenure, land governance and land management and administrative reforms in the country. This policy will establish an effective land tenure system that will recognize and regulate all legitimate and land ownership and tenure rights, ensure tenure security and equitable access to land for all citizens, and promote responsible, inclusive, and ecologically balanced use of land and land-based resources to generate wealth, reduce poverty, and increase resilience. The project will finance three main activities: institutional and legal support to land administration institutions, digitalization of land administration system, demarcation and registration of land rights. The Ministry of Lands intends to develop an automated cadastral land resource management system that will diversify the economy, protect land title ownership, enhance land base, and address the endless land disputes in the country. Under the WACA project, the ministry will help develop both the cadastral land use plan for the whole country. The ministry, through the Department of Community Development, is implementing two major projects. The first, supported by UNICEF, seeks to create opportunities for citizen empowerment and participation, facilitate increased demand for essential care, and promote behavior change for protective practices under the capacity building and strengthening of decentralized structures program, locally known as whatever that means. We can do it in Sakeno. The initiative brings back community and human capital at the center of the development process as a prerequisite to effect change and address gap in children's rights. By putting local governance structures at the center of all community intervention, it seeks to empower decentralized agencies to communicate and engage with the community structures and communities to drive change. The second is the Job, Skills, and Finance Program for Women and Youth in the Gambia, a 4-year initiative funded by EU through the United Nations Capital Development Fund at a tune of 15.2 million euros. The program supports social inclusion and employment of youth and women, with specific emphasis on promoting gender equality and addressing climate change. Fundamentally, it seeks to contribute to job creation for youth, women, and local communities, develop skills, and improve access to finance. During the period 2023, a total of $720,000 equivalent to $43.8 million was directly disbursed to 32 wards in 4 local government areas. Cumulatively, a sum of $1.1 million equivalent to $68 million was disbursed from inception. The type of sub-projects implemented by the wards include integrated vegetable garden, solar-powered borehole reticulation systems, culverts, household and street solar lighting systems, solar-powered borehole reticulation systems for domestic use, and poultry schemes. Foreign affairs. The government continues to implement its foreign policy objectives with the ultimate aim of promoting, safeguarding, and achieving the country's socio-economic interests, including through the harnessing and mobilization of domestic and external resources for the realization of the Green Recovery Focused National NDP. Despite current challenges, the government has continued its engagement with partners at the national, regional, and international levels, geared towards maintenance of durable peace, stability, and development of the country. Our major international and regional partners, such as United Nations, OIC, EU, AU, continue to support our development and reform agenda. At the bilateral level, relations between the Gambia and several countries continue to thrive progressively. Follow-up engagements are underway with bilateral partners in ensuring effective implementation of various mutually beneficial cooperative agreements. The government continues to strengthen the country's economic, social, and political ties with its Asian partners and friends. In line with this spirit, the government of the Gambia has participated at high-level international fora such as FOHAC, TICAD, and received capacity building support from China, India, Japan, Singapore, South Korea, Thailand, and most recently Indonesia in preparation for the OIC summit. Facilitated the provision of healthcare services by China and India and infrastructure projects with China, as well as wide-ranging economical, financial assistance in the form of grant, loans, and material support, which are all aimed at enhancing the systems, processes, and ICT infrastructure of the public service. The EU and its member states are one of the crucial partners for the Gambia. Since the change of government in 2017, EU stood by the Gambia and ensured the implementation of many projects that positively impacted governmental operation and lives of the Gambian people. Recently, the Gambia has been included in the EU-funded MAC program 2021 to 2027, a cooperation program whose objective is to strengthen sustainable growth and competitiveness of SMEs and job creation. The Gambia has also received 4 million euros from the West African Competitiveness Project implemented by UNIDO. For the maintenance of a balanced and mutually beneficial relationship, the Gambia organized the Gambia-EU Partnership Dialogue, Article 8 Dialogue, on the 10th of January 2023. This was fully graced by the honorable ministers from almost all the sectors of the economy. Within the framework of our continued engagement with development partners, the Gambia government on the 24th of October 2023, with the Office of the UN's Resident Coordinator, jointly signed and launched the Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework between the Gambia and the United Nations systems. This cooperation framework is the partnership between the Gambia government and the United States and the United Nations systems. The framework aligns with our national development priorities, global development agenda, such as 2030 SDG and the 2063 African Union Development Agenda. Migration has been a key priority for the government of the Gambia. Aligned with the principles and objectives of the Global Compact for safe, orderly, and regular migration, the government of the Gambia has established a national coordination mechanism on migration to strengthen and support the coordination, synergy, and complementarity of all stakeholders in the migration landscape. Similarly, the government recognizes the value that the diaspora brings to its development efforts and has been tapping the opportunity to increase the human capital and financial resources that Gambians abroad contribute to the development of the country. Beyond remittances, the diaspora continue to fulfill a key development role in the Gambia as major direct investors in critical emerging industries such as agriculture, tourism, and other sectors. Data and statistics. The Gambia was unable to conduct the population and housing census that should have taken place in April 2023 due to the effects of the COVID-19 and the implementation challenges associated with the digital census, which will be the new way for the next census. For the smooth conduct of any census, pre-enumeration activities should start at least 2 years prior to the census. Population and housing census needed to be preceded by a capacity needs assessment to determine the ICT, geographic information system, material, and human resources required at different stages of the project. However, this was not possible due to the measures to mitigate the spread of COVID-19, as well as the diverted focus of the government and development partners, which led to low disbursement of funds to support pre-enumeration activities. Travel restriction also affected the movement of technical experts to conduct this assessment and the implementation of regional workshops to boost capacity of census personnel. The delay in starting the pre-enumeration activities has a domino effect on the overall census roadmap and its implementation. Nonetheless, the GBOS has successfully completed data collection for the phase 3 of the Gambia Social Registry project, which covers all the districts in the Combos. With the completion of this phase, a total of 40 districts are now covered in the country, leaving only the KMC and Banjul as not covered. Resources are being mobilized to complete the exercise in the remaining mentioned areas. In partnership with Paris 21, the GBOS organized a special engagement with the National Assembly in February 2023 to promote data usage to improve policy decision-making and outcomes. The government also developed and validated the third national strategy for the development of statistics in response to data demand of the Recovery Focus NDP and the AU Agenda 2063 and the United Nations Agenda 2030. The third national strategy for the development of statistics aimed to strengthen the national statistical systems, which serves as a tool for producing reliable statistics and indicators for objective monitoring and the implementation of national development plan, as well as continental and international development agenda. In coordination with the Ministry of Health, the GBOS led the conduct of Essential Health Services Strengthening Survey. The survey was commissioned by the Essential Health Service Strengthening Project, and the purpose of this World Bank funded project is to improve the delivery and utilization of quality essential primary health care services in the Gambia. The baseline information used to evaluate this project were sourced from multiple indicator cluster surveys and the Gambia Demographic and Health Survey, which were conducted by the GBOS. Honorable Speaker, we now turn to revenue administration. The Gambia Revenue Administration Authority, GRA, has faced challenges in the revenue collection as a result of the spillover effects of the Russia-Ukraine war and the government intervention to lessen its impact on the population. Nonetheless, ongoing reforms have contributed positively towards their performance. Some of the notable reforms carried out so far include successful implementation of the ASCODA world systems, the single window solution at the seaport. Reforms are also being implemented in the areas of border and inland border controls, post-clearance audit, and enhanced risk management. In addition, efforts are being made to implement the new integrated tax administration system, ITAS, for the administration of domestic taxes, develop a monitoring and evaluation system, and automate internal audit process, and cleanse the taxpayer register. The authority is also working with ECOWAS Commission as part of a regional initiative to implement the SIGMAT, which is meant to assist in the tracking of goods in transit within the ECOWAS region. As part of efforts to improve domestic resource mobilization, the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, in partnership with GRA, signed a PPP contract early this year for the implementation of revenue mobilization solution for accessible goods, telecom services, and refined fuels with SIGPA, a Swiss-based company, with GRA as the implementing agency. The project governance structures have been established, and the regulation for the accessible goods and refined fuels were signed in April 2023. Medium-term growth outlook. Recovery and growth prospects over the medium term are expected to be subdued as conditions remain precarious due to the recent global developments. The downward revision of the global growth to 3% in 2023 from 2.9% in 2024 promises a challenging medium term. Although the West still grapples with weaker than expected growth, tourist arrival in 2023 has greatly improved, signaling positive moves towards recovery in the service sector. The service sector is projected to grow at a rate of 3.5% in 2023, ramping up to 4.9% in 2024, driven by tourism and wholesale and retail trade subsectors. With the ongoing post-COVID recovery reform agenda and the reform agenda, the Gambia Tourism Board placed great emphasis on inclusive, culture-oriented tourism development, as well as public-private partnership. In this vein, the board rolled out the Eco Lodge project in strategic locations across the country to boost ecotourism as well as domestic tourism. Other plans include market development and diversifying source markets, including development of sub-regional tourism, enhancing tourism products and product diversification, enhancing quality hospitality and digitalization in the industry, boosting air access as well as improving travel facilitation, and increasing the geographic spread of tourism. Institutional strengthening and infrastructure development are also given a lot of attention within the ongoing reform process. Performance in the industry is also expected to recover on the back of strong performance in the electricity and construction subsector. Construction of OIC roads and other infrastructure for the conference should be completed in 2024. However, this does not signal an expected slowdown in public investment. In contrast, public investment in infrastructure is expected to increase in the medium term. Key among the priority infrastructure projects include the Banjul Port Expansion Project, the University of the Gambia Project Phase 2, solarization of schools and hospitals, construction of new government complex, the rural and urban roads such as the Sting Corner, Abuko Lameng, Mandinarim Bypass, the widening of the Kairaba Avenue, and private construction is also expected to remain vibrant in the medium term. Furthermore, mining and quarrying subsector is expected to remain on a decent path in the medium term, fueled by rising export of heavy mineral concentrates and improved supply chain conditions. The agricultural sector is expected to continue a steady path to recovery after the downturn in 2021, with a growth projected rate at 8.3% in 2023 and 7.1% in 2024. On the back of good rainy season, these projections largely rest on two factors. First, improved investment efficiency and reforms in agricultural projects, coupled with increased private sector participation in rice and vegetable farming, as well as poultry and animal husbandry. Second, fisheries and aquaculture production, which in 2021 represented almost half of the total agricultural production, is expected to perform well over the medium term. The Ministry of Agriculture has developed a national agriculture extension policy to promote sustainable, intensive agriculture production and value addition, which will boost agricultural production and efficiency in the medium term. The establishment of a cogeneration plant for groundnut, which is anticipated to be commissioned in mid-2024, is also expected to contribute to the projected growth in the sector. Going forward, the economy will rely heavily on the productive sector to perform as projected in the medium term. Nevertheless, the risk of a poor rainy season could exacerbate volatility, hence recovery efforts must be premised on a strong commitment to medium-term policy reforms to ensure resilience. On the fiscal front, domestic revenue collection is projected to increase from 16.9 billion in 2023 to 22.8 billion in 2024. This positive growth trend is expected to remain constant over the medium term at an average annual rate of 20% in nominal terms between 2023 and 2027. The improvement reflects robust revenue mobilization efforts and the implementation of the GRA reform agenda geared towards improving compliance and expanding the tax base. With the Revenue and Tax Policy Directorate handling all tax-related matters, several reforms are being initiated to increase government tax revenue, including reviewing contracts of organizations that are not paying tax and a reform related to duty waiver and special investment certificates. These, with other reforms, explain the increased revenue projections. Total grants are anticipated to decline from 16.3 billion in 2023 to 12.2 billion in 2024. The budget support grant is expected to hit 3.2 billion in 2024 from 2.8 in 2023, while project grants are expected to decline from 13.6 billion in 2023 to 9 billion in 2024. Total government expenditure is projected to decline from 32.3 in 2023 to 27.4 in 2024, but over the medium term is expected to increase gradually to the tune of 40 billion in 2027. The projected decline in total expenditure in 2024 is largely attributable to the anticipated decline in project grants and reduction in capital expenditure due to expected completion of ongoing road projects, including urban roads such as the Kanifing Brufut and the rural roads such as the Nyomai Hakalang Sabah Sanjali, Batin Hadin Highway, and the practically completion of the Transgambia Highway. Total expenditure and net lending is projected to increase slightly by 6% from 37.15 billion in 2023 to 39.38 in 2024. This increase is mainly driven by increase in debt service, debt interest, which is projected to increase by 2.2 billion in 2024, a 76% increase. Personnel emolument expenditures are also projected to increase from 6.1 billion in 2023 to 7.43 billion in 2024. However, personnel emoluments have been revised in 2023 to take into account adequate adjustment relating to the recruitments. Honorable Speaker, we now feature the salient aspects of this budget. Total revenue is expected to increase by 5% on the back of an 86, 24, and 15% increase in non-tax, tax, and budget support grants, respectively. However, project grants are projected to decline by 34%. Total expenditures to increase by 8%, mostly attributable to increases in capital expenditures to the Ministries of Higher Education, Foreign Affairs, and debt service payments. These allocations are allocated to the University of the Gambia Project Phase 2 and the construction of Chancery for the Gambian embassies in Abuja, Dhaka, and Brussels. The budget deficit in 2024 as a percentage of GDP is estimated to decline to 2.55% compared to 3% in 2023, and thereby resulting in a reduction in the net foreign borrowing by 21%. Social sectors such as education, health, and agriculture spending account for 26% of the budget. Capital expenditure will constitute 28% of the budget to build the infrastructure and capital base for economic development. The key priority for the budget and the medium-term fiscal objective will be to reduce the budget deficit and the overall debt of the country. Rationale for the 2024 budget allocation. Honorable Speaker, we include this section to highlight the logic behind the key allocation to strategic sectors. National debt. The debt service payments have increased from 4.3 billion in 2023 to 7.5 billion in 2024, representing a 74% increment year on year. As a share of the total government local fund appropriation, debt service comprises more than 25% of the total budget. This is also roughly equivalent to the budget allocation to the three sectors of education, health, and agriculture. That is why, in our medium-term approach, we must tackle debt as a national priority. Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education. The 2024 budget allocation for the ministry stands at 4.2 billion, representing 20% increase from the 2023 budget of 3.5. This increased allocation reflects government's strong interest and continuous support for the development of education in the country. It is important to note that most of the basic and secondary education budget goes towards personnel emolument, subvention to school feeding program improvements, as well as the payment for the exam fees. School feeding, especially for the lower basic, continues to be an important area for the ministry. About 162.5 million has been dedicated to school feeding, representing 30% of last year's budget increase. West African Exam Council fees of 120 million has also been factored in for exams, And in addition, 255 million has been budgeted for the school improvement grants, which continue to be relevant, especially for the secondary schools. Ministry of Higher Education, Science, Research and Technology. The 2024 budget for MOHAS is 240 million, which includes support to tertiary education services. 82 million has been budgeted as subvention to support tertiary institutions, 25 million each for UTG, MDI, and Gambia College, and 7 million for USET. The government also intends to continue supporting the needy students through open scholarship by budgeting $75 million and bursaries for students amounting to 15 million. More importantly, students will now have the opportunity to apply for higher education funding through a student loan scheme. An initial seed contribution of $5 million has been included in the budget for such purpose. Cognizant of the need for innovation, $2.3 million has been included in the budget to support research and innovation. In addition, the school bus service currently being offered to students will continue to be supported with an amount of $3.5 million budgeted for the payment of school bus services. Ministry of Transport, Works and Infrastructure. The 2024 budget for the ministry increased to $2.64 billion from $1.95 billion in 2023, representing a 35% increment. 98% of the ministry's allocation is development, mainly directed towards completion of ongoing roads projects such as the Batin-Hardin Highway, 760 million, lots 1 and 2 of North Bank roads, 315 million, Kiang West Sankandi Road, 75 million, Kiang West Phase 2, 200 million, Nyomi Hakalan, 171 million, OIC Road, 135 million, and the Banjul Rehabilitation Project, 105 million. New roads are also provided with an estimated amount of 592 million. Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The 2024 budget for the ministry stands at 1.8 billion. Personnel emoluments constitute 822 million for the ministry. This includes cost of living allowance, exchange concession allowance, ECA of 339 million, budgeted to be paid to overseas diplomatic staff. Furthermore, rents and rates for embassy staff also represent a significant portion of the ministry's budget, with an approved budget of 263.6 million, compared to a budget of 236 million in 2023. As part of efforts to rationalize expenditure on rents, government has adopted a strategy of constructing new chanceries to minimize the expenditure on rent. Hence, preliminary estimates of 80 million has been programmed for the construction of new chancery buildings in Abuja for 30 million, Brussels 20 million, and Dakar 30 million. Additionally, 300 million has been budgeted for the hosting of the OIC conference in May 2024. Ministry of Health, budget stands at 2.3 billion compared to 1.9 billion in the previous year, representing a 21% increase. About 1.07 billion has been budgeted for the management of subvented entities as transfers to hospitals to provide support for the operations of the hospitals. Another 36 million has been budgeted for the National Health Insurance Authority, the body in charge of the National Health Insurance Scheme. The support for disease control also remains paramount, with 283 million budgeted for the program. The disease control caters for national pharmaceutical services, which include a budget of 240 million for drugs. And with respect to consultancies, 95 million has been budgeted to support the payment to Cuban doctors. Overseas medical treatment remains relevant for emergencies, and 50 million has been budgeted for 2024. And this is not only for the senior government civil servant, for all eligible Gambians. Another 2.27 million has been budgeted for diagnostic services, 122 in 2023 to 844 in 2024. About 500 million has been budgeted for input subsidy, including subsidies for organic fertilizer and seeds for farmers. The ministry's total development budget is 50 million from the GLF, which is meant for government counterpart funding for the various projects under the ministry. Ministry of Finance budget allocation stands at 1.9 billion. representing an increase of from 1.48 billion in 2023. The bulk of the allocation is earmarked for subvention. Subvention to the GRA is budgeted at 770 million, indicating a drive towards increased domestic resource mobilization. Another 111 million is budgeted for subvention to the Gambia Bureau of Statistics, including support for the upcoming census. Moreover, there has been an addition of the Millennium Challenge Corporation National Coordination Activities and the SOE Commissions in 2024 budget. The SOE Commission was created due to the urgent need to minimize fiscal risk emanating from the SOEs. In addition, in this regard, the budget includes an amount of 27 million for the SOE Commission. Likewise, in a bid to strengthen governance and institutionalize the capacity of the internal audit services, government has decided to increase the budget allocation from 27 million in 2023 to 50 million in 2024. The Accountant General Department also features meaningfully on the budget, and it includes cost of living allowance for financial attaches in the embassies, which increased from 72 million in 2023 to 85 million in 2024, representing an increase of 17%. The budget also includes an additional 66 million for the IFMI software. Furthermore, an allocation of 30 million is provided for printing expenses to support government services and clear government printing areas or to the Gambia Public Printing Corporation. In addition, 272 million is budgeted for equity participation in multilateral institutions. Ministry of Interior's budget is estimated at 1.6 billion. A large share of the ministry's budget is personnel emolument, which is equivalent to 65% of the ministry's overall budget. Another major budgetary provision include food and food services amounting to 115 million, fuel 82 million, electricity 18 million, and subvention to the Drug Law Enforcement Agency at 169 million. The Ministry of Defense attracts an increase of 16% from prior year, that is from 852 million to 992 million in 2024. The ministry's budget for PE is 639, which represents 64% of the total budget. The increase in the recurrent budget for the ministry is attributable to increase in personnel emolument, food and food services for the Army and fuel. Food and food services increased by 32% compared to 2023 budget. And an amount of 25 million has also been allocated for the purchase of trucks for the Army. For development, there are plans to renovate some military barracks, facilities, and structures, and funds amounting to 23.2 million has been set aside for this. Honorable Speaker, we now feature the medium-term policy reforms. To ensure fiscal sustainability and improve future conditions in terms of revenues and expenditure management, the following reforms must be considered and implemented. 1. Extension of performance contract to all SOEs and repositioning of strategically important ones to reflect good corporate structures with a view to improving their financial viability, service delivery, and reducing fiscal risk to the budget. 2. Development of a pipeline of bankable and commercially viable development projects in line with the flagship priorities identified in the Recovery Focus NDP, and provide risk guarantee schemes to unlock private and institutional financing, including pension fund. Strengthening of the public investment management through institutionalization of the medium-term public investment program for all sectors, and ensuring all public investment pass through the Gambia Strategic Review Board selection criteria. Development of a domestic resource mobilization strategy to enhance revenue collection. Review of the GAIPA Act 2015 to rationalize incentives and improve monitoring, reporting, and tax returns filing. Development of a tax expenditure policy to ensure that tax incentives align with the government overall fiscal objectives. Development of a duty waiver policy that incorporates tax compliance management. Corporate tax payments by major contracts must be enforced. development of excise tax stamp petroleum marking solution for excisable goods, telecoms, and energy, digitalization of duty waiver application and approval process, use of key performance indicators to monitor and analyze MDA's operations, development of a travel policy for the entire public service to ensure value for money, development of a foreign service policy with the aim of rationalizing foreign missions, finalization of the vehicle policy and commencement of the implementation as a matter of urgency in order to rationalize expenditure on the purchase of vehicles, fuel, and maintenance. Review of the vehicle management plan by the Riders for Health to ensure that costs are rationalized. Honorable Speaker, we now go to the proposed revenue measures for 2024. Administrative reforms, administrative measures. With effect from 1st January 2024, all public institutions, including SOEs, agencies, and local government agencies procuring goods and services shall be required to request for a tax clearance certificate issued by the Commissioner General from suppliers contractors as a prerequisite before entering into contracts with any supplier or contractor. Going forward, all concession contracts and agreements that may be considered for tax exemption shall conform to Section 149, subsection 3 of the 1997 Constitution and Section 33 of the Income and Value Added Tax Act 2022. In line with this, all current contracts and agreements with tax exemptions are currently under review. Therefore, all MDAs are advised to refrain from offering tax incentives clauses in concession contracts or agreements without following the legal process for such exemptions. To improve tax compliance in the management of duty waivers, a new duty waiver form with an inbuilt tax compliance management mechanism will be introduced from 1st of January 2024. The fees mentioned below, which are transactional and payable once or upon utilization of the services, will be reviewed. As part of efforts to ramp up domestic resource mobilization, the Ministry, in collaboration with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, will introduce user charges for the legalization, authentication, translation of documents at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The schedule for fees shall be gazetted and will come into force thereafter. On the land registration, documentation, and administration, current fees will be increased to reflect the service cost. The new fee schedule will be gazetted and shall come into force thereafter. In the health sector, certain user charges fees will be increased to support cost recovery. The Ministry of Health will work with the relevant stakeholders to inform the necessary increment. The fees in the fisheries sectors will also be revised to ensure that fees charges reflect the cost of the administration of the fisheries sector, as well as provide more funding for the sector for job creation and employment growth. The current travel moratorium issued via the Office of the President, His Excellency Adama Barrow, will continue for the rest of 2024 fiscal year. Official travels will be restricted to statutory travels only, and the size of the delegation will also be trimmed. Gambia Revenue Authority, amendment of Section 2030 of IVAT Act 2030. A person who fails to file an annual tax return for corporate income tax shall be liable for a penalty of 1% of the revenue reported in the return, with a minimum of 10,000 and a maximum of 250,000. Any return filed after the cutoff date, that is March 31st of the following year, the maximum rate of 250,000 will be applicable. Penalties will be applicable immediately after the filing due date, and late payments shall attract penalty and interest charges in accordance with IVAT Act. A person who fails to file an annual tax return for personal income tax shall be liable for a penalty of 1% of the revenue reported in the return, with a minimum of 5,000 and a maximum of 50,000. Any return filed after the cutoff date, March 31st of the following year, the maximum rate of 50,000 is applicable. Penalties will be applicable immediately after the filing due date, and late payments shall attract penalty and interest charges in accordance with IVAT Act 2012. A person who fails to file a monthly tax return, including but not limited to pay-as-you-earn, VAT, and withholding to 1% of the tax due in the return, with a minimum of 1,000 and a maximum of 5,000 per month or part thereof. The definition of tax return under Section 135 will be extended to include pay-as-you-earn returns. Introduction of a withholding tax on rental income by MDAs and all businesses under the category of light taxpayers as prescribed below. A person occupying property used for commercial purposes shall, at the time of making the rent payment, withhold tax on rental income at a rate of 15%. A person occupying property used for residential purpose shall, at the time of making the rent payments, withhold tax on rental income at a rate of 8%. These provisions shall only be applicable by the MDAs and established private corporations. Increase the pool and betting tax on winnings on the betting, gaming, lottery prize, competition, and gambling from 10% to 30% with effect from January 1st. A sole proprietor of a business with no employees shall be exempted from payment of payroll tax levied under the Payroll Tax Act. With effect from 1st January 2024, excise tax on the following imports will be increased accordingly. Spirits from $245 per liter in 2019 to $260 per liter in 2024. Beer from $135 per liter in 2019 to $150 per liter in 2024. Wine, $210 per liter in 2019 to $225 per liter in 2024. Progressively increase the excise tax on used vehicles that are more than 15 years old. Used vehicles up to 20 years old will attract 20% excise tax. Vehicles up to 30 years will attract 25% tax, and any vehicle older than 30 years will attract 45% excise tax. This is intended to discourage or reduce the importation of old vehicles into the country which pose environmental risk. Resume the collection of domestic excise tax on flour at 5% ex-factory price from January 1st, 2024. Commence the implementation of excise stamps on domestically produced and imported excisable commodities as outlined in the excise stamp regulation from 1st of January 2024. Commence the implementation of fuel marking during the year and implement the revenue assurance system for mobile network operators. Cigarette and other tobacco products tax increment will be as follows. Increase specific tax excise on cigarettes, cigars, and cigar rolls from $35 per pack to $40 per pack. Increase the environmental tax on cigarettes, cigars, and cigar rolls from $5.22 to $7.22 in 2024. Increase excise tax on other tobacco products from 420 kilograms to 450 in 2024. Increase environmental tax on other tobacco products from $200 per kilogram to $220. Introduce additional 10% ad valorem excise tax on all imported tobacco products, and increase excise tax at 15% on all electronic cigarettes, vapors, and gadgets. To continue the Gambia government's commitment under the WHO Framework Convention on Tobacco Control and ECOWAS excise directives on tobacco products, we will introduce a tobacco levy at $50 bottles on cigarettes, cigars, and cigar rolls. Public revenue collection process will also be enhanced to make it mandatory that revenue will be directly collected by financial institutions. Government revenue collectors will focus on documentation such as preparation of invoices and receipts and reporting, but no longer cash handling. A legislation embodying the above-mentioned revenue measures will be promulgated to provide the legal framework for the collection of the said taxes, duties, and levies. Honorable Speaker, as we draw the curtains on 2023 fiscal year and prepare for 2024, let me conclude by drawing the attention of this August Assembly to the very challenging and unprecedented position we find ourselves. Multiple overlapping shocks send destabilizing waves to economies across the world, worsening global economic prospects and domestic economy. While the country is still grappling with immediate and long-term effects of the pandemic, the Russia-Ukraine conflict is negatively impacting the recovery process. The rise in global food and energy prices, as well as high cost of borrowing due to contractionary monetary policy stance, contribute to creating a pass-through on the domestic economy. As we relentlessly work to surmount these challenges, it is worthy to note that the outlook remains grim. In these circumstances, we have been forced to look inwards. In doing so, we have realized that to weather the storm, we must build resilience from within. This requires serious commitment to reforms in critical areas to strengthen recovery and build sustainable resilience. It is essential to enhance revenue collection and enhance value for money in public expenditure, strengthen macro fiscal sustainability over the medium term. The government, through the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, is strongly committed to promoting fiscal discipline across the MDAs, implementing robust public financial management systems, and sound pro-poor fiscal policies to achieve macroeconomic stability and broader goal of inclusive growth and poverty alleviation. To reinforce the country's macroeconomic and socio-economic fundamentals, reforms are urgently needed across the board, especially in areas of digitalization and agriculture, value chain development, in strong and close partnership with private sector. The growing impacts of the climate change and adverse weather events heighten the threat to food security. The government remains committed to intensifying the resource mobilization to fully implement the resource-focused NDP. A draft financing strategy has been prepared, and a domestic resource mobilization strategy will also be developed to serve as a tool that will inform domestic resource mobilization policy reforms to strengthen our national resource mobilization drive. In addition, the Gambia continues to benefit from unwavering support of development partners in tackling key challenges and advancing our national development agenda. Strong collaboration is urgently needed to tackle our shared challenges and get on a path to recovery. The recent shocks to the global economy have brought to light the simple fact that the world has become a global village. On behalf of the government and the entire Gambian population, I will use this opportunity to record our profound gratitude to our development partners for their resolute support in our development agenda. It is with deep appreciation that I mention the World Bank Group, the International Monetary Fund, the European Union, African Development Bank Group, Islamic Development Bank, the UN agencies, the African Union, OPEC Fund, Arab Bank for International Development, GIZ, IFAD, ECOWAS, MRC Holland Foundation, the Commonwealth, Red Cross, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Saudi Fund for Development, Kingdom of Morocco, Turkey, the State of Kuwait, and the Kuwaiti Fund, Russia, the People's Republic of China, Japan, South Korea, Republic of France, the United Kingdom, and the United States are strong enabling partners. I would like to take this opportunity to thank His Excellency President Adama Barrow for his support and leadership stance in these reforms. I also thank my colleague cabinet ministers and the team of hardworking staff at the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs. I'm equally thankful to this August Assembly and the staff of the National Assembly under the leadership of the Speaker and the Clerk for working tirelessly to approve the 2024 budget estimates. We remain committed to sustaining this partnership, and we believe that as we work together, we will jointly deliver on our joint mandate to improve the lives and livelihoods of the Gambian people. On this note, Honorable Speaker, I submit and I beg to move.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Any seconder, honorable members? Honorable Deputy Majority Leader and Member for Olu Yundum.
Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker. I rise to second the motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, pursuant to Order 87.4 of the Standing Orders of the National Assembly, I will adjourn the debate on the Appropriation Bill 2024 until Monday, 11th December 2023, to enable members study the bill. But before doing so, I wish to register thanks and gratitude to the Honorable Minister for Finance and Economic Affairs for ably tabling the 2024 appropriation bill as required of him by the Constitution. The Honorable Minister did set out government's fiscal and economic development plans and programs for the fiscal year 2024. This process is not merely about numbers on paper, it is about the impact these allocations will have on the lives of the people we serve. It demands a careful examination of the needs of our nation, a meticulous consideration of the challenges we face, and a commitment to prudent financial management. I encourage all members of this esteemed Assembly to engage in constructive and informed debate. Let us scrutinize the provisions of the bill with diligence, asking questions that are pertinent to the well-being of our constituents. It is my hope that this discussion will be characterized by a spirit of cooperation and commitment to the common good. As we deliberate on the appropriation bill, let us remember our duty to represent the interests of the people who have entrusted us with this responsibility. I trust that through our collective efforts, we will arrive at decisions that reflect the best interests of our nation. May our deliberations be marked by wisdom, prudence, and a genuine dedication to the service of our fellow citizens. On that note, honorable members, I wish to take this opportunity on behalf of both sides of the Assembly, and indeed on my own behalf, to extend our thanks and appreciation to the following distinguished guests and invitees for gracing this important sitting of the National Assembly. His Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic, my Lord the Chief Justice, honorable Cabinet Ministers here present, members of the Diplomatic and Consular Corps, permanent secretaries and head of institutions, staff of the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, senior government officials here in present, service chiefs, religious leaders, members of the press, and all other invited guests, and the public in general. On that note, honorable members, I now put the question: be resolved that this August Assembly do stand adjourned until Monday, 11 December 2023 at 10 a.m. prompt. Those in favor, please say aye. Those not in favor, please say no. The ayes have it. This Assembly now stand adjourned until Monday, 11 December 2023 at 10 a.m. prompt for the debate and consideration of the appropriation bill. I thank you.